We're on live. You should warn me when we go live. Before I put something on the World Wide Web. Good morning, good morning. Buenos dias, bonjour, willkommen, hola, namaste, assalamu alaikum, aloha, hello, hello. Hope everybody's doing well. I know there must be some traffic challenges. The vice president's at New Birth today, so I think people come from Conyers might have a little trouble. It's all good. Hope they have a good meeting there, but I'm glad you're here today, and I wouldn't want to do this without you. And we have made it nearly through October. It's like, boy, I tell you. Is it just me, or when I look at when there's like a memory in my face on Facebook, I argue with it every time. I'm like, there's no way that was 5 years ago. That's impossible. I feel like with the pandemic, I feel like Rip Van Winkle. It's like there's like 2 years I can't account for, because that's the only way I can make sense of it. I think there's no possible way something was 4 years ago that I mean, if you held a gun to me, I would have said, no, that's about a year and a half ago, right? No, it was back in the 70s. It's better just to live in the now. Which we are. Spirit of God, we recognize that we are in the now. We are here. We are present. We are conscious. We're happy to be here. As David of old said, I was glad when they said unto me, let's go into the house of the Lord. And the house of the Lord is wherever we are. We build a house for his habitation. And so where we're gathered together in that name, Christ is manifested among us. We bless that divine synergy today. We thank you for it. Please remain standing. Whatever prayer you got for me, Michelle, just surprise me, DJ. It could be the Lord's Prayer. It could be St. August. Okay, we're back to the Lord's Prayer. We're back to the Lord. Okay, good. Let's say it. Our Father who art in heaven, presence of divine love and light that lives within us and within all of life, hallowed be thy name. We invoke the powerful creative nature of all that is sacred and holy. Thy kingdom come. We embrace the healing essence that is the kingdom of heaven within us. Thy will be done. We accept our greatest good as we align with our divine nature, on earth as it is in heaven, knowing that the affairs of our lives reflect our evolving consciousness. Give us this day our daily bread. Each day we receive great blessings from within and throughout all the activities of our lives. And forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. We accept the divine nature of all things and all people, including ourselves, as we move away from judgment and toward greater awareness of divine presence. And lead us not into temptation. We shall be vigilant in expressing and experiencing the oneness with all life. But deliver us from evil as we are learning to live without fault-finding and suffering. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. For we accept the consciousness of divine perfection with all its power and glory right here, right now, and forever. Amen. And so it is. Tell the person next to you, there's nobody I'd rather sit next to than you today. And I mean it this time. And then you may be seated. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, bud, come in. Come in, come in, come in, come in. Again, thank you so much for being here. As always, I appreciate it. I never take it for granted. And those of you who are streaming, glad that you're with us as well. Our outreach this month is to the Red Cross for the Hurricane Helene relief. And like I said, we've been giving through Red Cross. Even back in the church in the nowadays, we always gave through Red Cross, and it was. I always feel confident working with them. I feel like they are good for channeling the money to where it's supposed to go. So we're being a help with that. Now listen, next weekend is meditation weekend number 23. I'm assuming you're all going to be there. I've already been up there last week and picked out a spot. But if you're not, then don't come here. I mean, you can come here, but you'll be sitting here like in detention after class. And so I'm looking forward to this. I'm ready for it. As a matter of fact, I think I'm just going to get into the teaching today, and we're going to do a longer meditation at the end, because I like to sort of set on these meditation weekend weeks, I like to set the mood, go ahead and get you in the mode for it for all week long. And so next weekend we'll be up in Dahlonega, and if you're planning on going, I think what I want to do, we usually go up on Friday night, and we're staying at the Smith House on Friday night, and that's the place. If you've never been there, it's a really historic. It's sort of like their Merrimack's, but it's like what would you call it? Like Southern country dining where you sit at large tables with people. So for any of you that are coming up for Friday night, I think what I'm going to do is just put on the stream thing. What do you call it? Not stream, but the message thread. For whoever is there Friday night, if you want to, we can a group of us can go there and have dinner. We did an outing up there a few years ago, and it was really good. They've really very good food. It's sort of a historic place. It's built in a historic gold mine, because that's a lot of gold came out of Dahlonega. So, but there's a park. I don't remember the name of it. There's a park I picked out, but I'll let you know when we get up there. But that's where we're going to do. For sure, we'll do Saturday night there. I'll see how chilly it is to determine if we need to find a place for Sunday morning. Last year it was fine. We did LJ outside on Sunday morning. It was fine. So we'll see. And I'm always expecting something wonderful to happen. Last year, I don't know how many of you were in LJ, but remember that on Sunday morning we walked down to, we're going to take a picture that part of the river. That's right, you were up there. And that guy was just standing there with his hands up. I think he was Native American. And I said, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bother you. We're just going to take a picture." He said, "That's fine." And he turned and walked off, and he just did that the whole way. And he just sort of, I don't want to say he vanished into thin air, but I never saw where he went, and there was no car anywhere for him to get into. And it was one of those things, there's such a supernatural zone when we're in there that I always think everything is supernatural. So I thought, was that an angel? Like, what was that? He didn't say his name was Zephyr, but it was just odd that he was just, like, I didn't see him standing there till we got down there, and then it's like he was holding our spot for us. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. There's two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything, or everything. And then, so I choose to go in the everything column, especially on meditation weekends. So as far as I know, the weather's supposed to be nice. When I was up there last week, leaves weren't turning really yet, but they will be. This is actually supposed to be peak weekend up there. And we were talking about this today, that when Howie had his cabin up in Blairsville, we would go up every fall, and honestly, you could, from one day to the next, there was a marked difference. I couldn't believe how much the leaves turned in 24 hours. So we're expecting a great time. I hope to see you there. Dahlonaga's a beautiful historic spot. Really cool little town square. Lots of it's ideal for fall. And we're not that far from, I didn't think y'all were going to be here. Y'all lied. Oh, it's next weekend. Oh, okay. All right. Well, I forgive you. Now that I've publicly embarrassed you. I never know with y'all if y'all are going to be in Europe, or because sometimes you are. This crowd, nobody goes to Lithonia. This crowd is like, every time Jeff and Marty are here, they've just gotten back from scuba diving in Fiji. You would never believe, if you just met them, you think, no, they're making that up, right? But they do. Anyway, glad y'all are here. But really cool little town square with all the little, Amicalola Falls is right down 15 minutes from there, and that's beautiful. And they've also got a really incredible, I don't remember the name of it, but it's a huge pumpkin patch, and it's beautiful. Even if you don't want to buy them, it's just, it's a great photo op place if you want to go there, and you can pan for gold. Just remember, if you find some gold, I want you to bring all the tithes into the storehouse. There may meat in thine house. I'm going to go ahead and announce this. We're going to have the best Christmas party this year we have ever had. I'm just putting it out there. I don't know where it's going to be or how we're going to do it. Huh? Oh, what was I saying? The Sunday before? Possibly. Something's going to work out. We actually have talked to, it's called Ration and Dram or Dead End Drinks. I don't know why they have two different names for it. Right across the street there. They have an upstairs place. That might be a possibility. But main thing is, I just need to say this out loud. I don't want to not have Christmas. And I just need to say we're going to have a great Christmas party. I don't know where or when or exactly. As soon as it materializes, I feel like once we get past next weekend, I'll be in full mode. But I don't know. Just been reminding myself this week, you have to speak things into existence. I know that, and I've taught on it, but you have to practice it, because you can get into of course you should look well to the state of your flocks and all that stuff. Yes, do all your due diligence, but you also have to say, this is going to happen. You have to stop talking about what is happening and talk about what you want to happen. I know that's words of your mouth 101, but I'm sure if I have to remind myself of it, y'all really have to be reminded of it. You know what I mean? Because you have to just keep saying, this will happen. And I notice so many, like I'll just watch people on TV and interviews, and people you wouldn't even expect, like Jay-Z and different people who will say, well, you can speak things into existence. I hear all these highly successful people just casually talk about manifesting things, and you have to speak things into existence. And you can say, yeah, well, that's easy for them to say because they got all that money. Well, how do you think they got all that money? That's how they got to that position. So you have what you say. You have to believe in your heart and say it with your mouth. You speak to the mountain. Quantum physics has validated that from a scientific viewpoint, that sound does move matter. So talk about things and talk about what you want to happen. I want this to be a beautiful fall. I want to have a great Christmas. I want 2025 to be a great year. I want to feel good. I want to, those are just simple things, but you have to say them, especially as you get older and you have to deal with things in your body. You have to keep saying, this is how I want to be as a senior, or whatever you want to call it. What's another? I don't want to say old person, but a mature or a golden girl, or whatever you want to call yourself. But you need to say how you want that to be, and not just, even when you go to the doctor and they tell you, it seems like at a certain point, every time you go to the doctor, you're like, really, this? Now this? Seriously? And you have to keep telling your body, this is how we're going to age. This is what's going to happen. And yes, you obey your doctor. Yes, take your meds. But also say what you want to happen. And I know you know that, but I need to say publicly, we're going to have a great Christmas party. And whatever money we need to offset it, because everyone we've ever done, we've always had people that gave to it to offset the prices. Come in. And if we need that, then fine. We will get that as well. So I needed to announce that. All right. So as I said, I think we'll just go ahead and get into the teaching today. And I do have a good one for you. So are we ready for, Charles, if you can hear us? Can we start the podcast now? I need a word. Welcome to Metron Live, the Metron podcast, coming to you from the Atlanta Theater. Metron people, please welcome the podcast people and tell them that you're glad they are listening. As always, kudos to Charles McFall, the rock god of podcasting, currently celebrating his 20th year in broadcasting and in podcasting. And so we're glad that you're listening. I do have a word for you today. We're not in a series this month. I may get back into series mode next month, but I've just been loosey-goosey this month and just let the Spirit speak through me. And the Spirit is still alive. The Spirit still hovers over the face of the deep. The Spirit of the Lord God is still upon me to preach liberty to the captives and the opening of the prison to them that are bound. Just when I think it's gone, I'll say something and somebody will say, oh, my God, you just totally changed my life. And I think, well, all right, I guess it's still there. Ken doesn't even pay attention to me anymore when I say, I don't have the anointing anymore, I've lost it. And he's like, whatever. He doesn't even answer me. And then lo and behold, it comes back. And so it's here today. And my title today, as I say, let there be light, it's creating your best future, harmonizing memory, imagination, and the truth that makes you free. Let me tell you where I'm going with this. I'm very much about dealing with whatever you have not dealt with. I used a quote that Leslie had used earlier this week when I did a meditation about healing. And I don't remember the exact words, but it was something about if you don't deal with certain things in your life, they can manifest in your body. And I do believe that. I do think you have to not just stay in therapy mode all the time, but you also need to face things. And I actually used the metaphor of walking into the lion's den. Like, you can't be afraid of it. You've got to deal with memories and things in the past that are affecting the present. And part of that journey has been the whole yes and thing that we've discussed. We're not making excuses for things that happened in the past. The and is all inclusive. You can say, this happened to me and this happened to me. It's instead of saying this negative thing happened, but you don't have to put the but in there, because the but is like trying to make it less painful than it was. The and says all things work together for good, including the painful things. Now, having said that, on the other hand, the flip side to that is you do have to live in the now, and you do have to learn to let things go. Rutherford this morning posted something about just something simple about the leaves falling. Every fall it's a reminder you have to let things go. So I do believe that. So there's a sweet spot between these two polarities. This polarity is you got stuff you got to deal with. If you don't deal with it, it's going to affect it could affect your body. It could affect your lifespan. The flip side to it is you got to let stuff go and move on and be in the now. And the truth is somewhere between those two things. The truth is in the tree of life. The truth is not binary. The truth is not the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Life is just life. And you have to be able to look back through all of it. And best case is to be able to deal with whatever brought you to this point and process it and then let it go. Some people are skipping one important thing. when Paul talked about spiritual warfare, for whatever you think about spiritual warfare, his concept was having done all to stand, comma, then stand. If you stand without having done all, you may just be in denial. So after you've done all, it's like you did all your stuff. You did your work. You dealt with it. You talked about it. You got therapy. You went to a 12-step program. You prayed about it. You went through inner healing. You had a miracle. You had a paradigm shift. You got more truth. The truth made you free, which is why I use that. You know, when Jesus said, you'll know the truth and the truth will make you free, the emphasis is on the word know. Truth doesn't make you free just across the board. You have to know it. If you're prescribed a medicine and you set it beside your bed and say, there it is, it's good, you know, that's fine, but you actually do have to take it. And you have to take it according to the way it's supposed to be taken. So it's not just the truth, it's knowing the truth. And in this context, I want to talk about knowing the truth about yourself, knowing the truth about your childhood, knowing the truth about your past, knowing the truth about what you went through in past relationships and how they affected you, and life experiences, and all those things is finding the truth that makes you free. It's not the truth that makes you self-absorbed and just talking about your drama all the time. It's so that you don't have to talk about it. It's so that you do process it and work through it, and it's like you've, for lack of a better term, vomited it all up. I know that's gross to say, but it's like there's some things you have to just talk about until it's done, and then you say, okay, I've said my piece on that, and now I'm ready to move. And nobody's exactly the same way in this. Some people are affected every day of their life by things that happened in the past. Other people don't even remember them. Sometimes I personally wish my memory wasn't as good as it is. Because it's not like I'm trying to be petty, but I do remember I remember things I wish I could forget. This is not even true for Metron anymore, but, you know, in years, but come on in, Will. In years past, I would, what was I just saying? Oh, yeah. I knew there was something. Wellington erased it when he walked by me. He was like, you took my thought. Just took it right with him. He's such a good listener. He said, I'm just going to take it. I'll just take it personally. I'm like, no, you can't. You have to let everybody, you have to share with the class. Yes. In years past, like somebody would write me again, this is old news, but somebody would write me some horrible letter. I mean, some letter that would make you want to just, if you didn't have a good self-esteem, you just go do yourself in. Come on in. And come on in. We know you just came straight from the club. Come on in. She had to come by here before she went and got breakfast. I know. I ain't judging you. If you're going to go out to the club, stop by church on your way home. Anyway, somebody would write me some horrible thing. I mean, pages and pages. And then I would see them somewhere, and they would act like it never happened. They'd be like, hey, Bishop, how you doing? And I'm like, seriously? We're not going to acknowledge the 10 pages of hell you sent me? And I think they want to think I've forgotten it. I'm like, no, I can remember which paragraph you said what on, and certain phrases that I've been in a fetal position for for several weeks over. Like, yeah, I remember that. My feeling is if I've said something to somebody and I have to contact them, I just want to acknowledge the elephant in the room and say, I know this is awkward, but I hope we can get past this. Okay, fine. Just don't pretend like it didn't happen. It's like there was a thing that was on Seinfeld years ago that the George Costanza. I'm getting to the scriptures in a minute. The George Costanza character was based on Larry David. Larry David wrote most of the Seinfeld, and there was an episode where George Costanza did this terrible thing at work, and he walked out and he quit and overreacted to something. Come in. About time you got back. Killed a fatted calf. Tell the prayer chain they can stop praying now. But no, I know you've been up in Virginia. I'm just glad you're back. But it was really bad. And when he got home, he thought, "What did I do? I overreacted. Why did I quit my job?" And so I think Kramer must have said to him, "Just go back tomorrow and act like it didn't happen." And that actually did. Like Larry David used to be a writer for Saturday Night Live, and years ago, when he was working there years ago, he blew up at somebody and cussed everybody out and left. And then when he got home, he thought, "I can't believe I just did that." So he tried to go back the next day and play it off like it didn't happen. Well, of course, everybody remembered. You know, you don't just cuss somebody out a few hours ago, unless you're in a bar. Right, Felicia? Look, let it be known, if you come in late, you're going to get something when you walk by me. It's just be prepared for it. It's good for you. It builds character. She can't lie in the house of God. All right. But anyway, you get my point. It's like, yes, there are some things if you can just let them go and move on, bravo. If, however, you think there's subterranean things in the subconscious that you're dealing with, you shouldn't be afraid of dealing with that either, okay? So, having said that, these are two verses of Scripture you're very familiar with. First is Isaiah 43:18. This is where in the King James it says, "Remember not the former things of old." Here in the Message, it says, "Forget about what's happened. Don't keep going over old history. Be alert, be present. I'm about to do something brand new. It's bursting out. Don't you see it? There it is. I'm making a road through the desert and rivers in the badlands." King James says wilderness. It's a great verse of Scripture because it's saying, he says, I'm about to do a new thing, but you have to perceive it. Sometimes God, Spirit, higher power is doing something that's new, but if you don't perceive that it's new, you don't get the benefit of it. It's like, it's the truth that you know that makes you free. It's the new thing that you perceive that makes you free. I love it when a thing will happen that becomes a signpost on my journey where, like, for instance, something will happen that I think, if this had happened a year ago, it would have really gotten inside my head and messed me up, but I'm okay with it. Like, I don't really care. That, to me, is a sign of growth, to where you are grateful that the thing happened. You know what I mean? Like, this is, to me, a huge sign of growth when you've just written out this long thing to retort to somebody, then you think, you know what? I'm just going to delete all that and say, okay, thumbs up emoji. Because what's the point? And I'm not afraid of confrontation. Sometimes it's necessary. But sometimes you can also tell that you've evolved enough that you think, this doesn't have to be a deal. It would have been a deal at one point. But does that resonate with you? And to where you become grateful, you think, oh, I guess I'm evolving. And that's what happens. You perceive a new thing. Like, oh, I've grown, or something has happened, or I've processed this. And if this thing had not happened, I wouldn't have any point of reference to know that I've gotten better. I must be healing. It happens in the physical. I remember, it's been over a year since I had my shoulder rebuilt. And I remember the day that I did that, and I thought, oh, I've been doing that for a few days, and it doesn't hurt anymore. I remember because I was a while back having a lot of chest pains. And before I had the surgery, I talked to my cardiologist. I said, could it be that, is it possible that pain's radiating from this and I'm interpreting it as chest pain? He said, oh, absolutely. He said, you could have pain in your ankle that could show up in your chest. He said, if I were you, I would get this done as soon as possible. And one day, I hadn't even thought of it. One day, Ken just asked me, he said, have you had any chest pain since you had your shoulder done? And I said, you know what? I haven't. And it hadn't even occurred to me. So it was a new thing in my body that I had not perceived yet. And I was so happy when he brought it to my attention, because I was dealing, you know how it is. You get one thing fixed, and you fix the roof, but now the plumbing, like there's something, maintenance going on. Like, oh, I forgot about that things I've been dealing with. I've been calling Georgia Power and Roto-Rooter and all these other places. Like, oh, this other thing's already, that's fixed. So let's put that on the table. Then I want to show you this other thing, very famous, Philippians 3:13 and 14. This is out of the Tree of Life version. This is where Paul's talking about his previous life in the Jewish religion and how that he had to process it. And he said, everything that was important to me in that system now is like dung to me. I've processed it and eliminated it from my system, and I have to move on from it. Here in the Tree of Life, he says, brothers and sisters, I do not consider myself as having taken hold of this, but this one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead, I press on toward the goal. Now, again, this is best case scenario, to be able to just forget those things which are behind. And I don't know if it's just because I've been around, the scriptures are so much in my DNA. I don't know exactly how to define this, but there are certain phrases that can totally, I can turn on a dime with it. And one of them is forgetting those things which are behind. I've just meditated that so much. Like, yeah, there are things behind you that you do have to forget and move on. And this is one of those. There's just always a glory on that phrase. Forget this one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind, I press on. So again, we know all about this. We know the concept of living in the now. Again, we also know that in the real world, the past is prologue, and we are still dealing with, there's some famous quote about the past that says the past is not even the past, because there are things from the past that you do deal with every day. And some things you think you have forgotten and processed and moved on, and then something will happen to trigger a thing. I will not go into any detail, but I had a little scary thing that happened week before last, and I'm still waiting to talk to my cardiologist about it. And then in the meantime, on my chart, they sent me a diagnosis from my last EKG that completely explained what happened. And I thought, okay, well, at least I have a name for it. Still, but the thing, a couple of things that there was a list of things that could trigger it, and one of it was strong emotions. And I thought, oh, then I'm in trouble, because it didn't even use the word stress. It just said strong emotions. I thought, what the heck? All of my emotions are strong. What does that mean? Like this could happen to me at any time? Well, I passed out. I was in a public place and I passed out. And there's a word for it, and it has to do when your heart rate gets too low, and there are certain things that can trigger it. And it was very scary. I mean, to the point that Monday of last week, I didn't leave the house because I still felt odd. And I thought, I cannot run the risk of getting out and passing out. But then you reach a point where you think, I'm not a shut-in. I can't be here all day either. So I'm going to have to, keep my emotions not so strong. It's kind of like those, is it those fainting goats? Have you seen that? Like a thing happens. I mean, that's what I felt like when I'm reading the results. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like one of those fainting goats. Like, this isn't good. I'm like a Victorian woman who needs a fainting couch. Who like, oh, I need my smelling salts. Like, dear God, I can't be that guy. So I thought, no, I'm going to do my thing today, and I'm going to go out and walk, and I can't live in fear of this. I'm going to have, now that I'm aware of it, I will know, and I will also, if I'm out for the day, I'll be careful what I eat, because high cholesterol food can also trigger it, and it could have been connected to that, because it was Yom Kippur, and I was feeling real Jewish, and I went to my favorite deli, and they had a pastrami sandwich. I thought, I don't even eat pastrami, but I thought, you know what, that sounds so good. I'm getting me. I'm like, Hava, Nagila, Hava. I'm eating pastrami and a half sour pickle. And then later I thought, oh, I'm not doing good. So this is good. And, I'm glad y'all are so amused at my life-threatening situation. But I sat down to write a meditation at the Starbucks next door, and I thought, I'm not feeling good. And I thought, it'll pass, it'll pass. And then suddenly everything just went white, and which they described, that's what it does. And I said, oh, I'm about to pass out. Fortunately, there was a chair. I guess people just thought I was asleep because people were walking by me on the sidewalk. Of course, in Atlanta, people are sleeping, there's people are asleep on the sidewalk and people step over them. So they might have thought I was unhoused or so. I don't know. But anyway, it was definitely a wake-up call, and it did scare me. But I also thought, well, I got a name for it. And when my cardiologist is out of town, when he gets back in town, I'll ask him, what do I need to do? Because the ultimate is you have to get a pacemaker. I'm like, oh, hell no. I'm not getting a pacemaker. No. I am not ready for that. So it was new information that I needed to have. But I also thought, well, Lord have mercy, all my emotions are strong. So now if you start stressing me out, I'm going to be like, whoa. Don't make me go. Anyway, why was I telling you that? Oh, there was a point. There was some point to it about letting things go, but letting things go does not mean living in denial either. Now, before I get into the rest of this, childhood trauma is a real thing. Child sexual abuse is a real thing. There's also a lot of power of suggestion that goes on. Like, I don't know if you remember, like back in the 80s, there was so much going on about, like on Geraldo and all these shows, there was a big scare about Satanists who were kidnapping kids and using them in rituals and stuff. And nearly 100% of those things have turned out to be not true. They were things that people misremembered, and I mean, there's been documentaries about it, and the whole thing about the Mandela effect, that people remember that a thing happened that didn't happen. Even, I don't know if any of y'all remember Sybil, the book about the woman with multiple personalities, and Sally Field played it. I was always very interested in that. Well, now, as it turns out, Dr. Wilbur, the woman that was her psychiatrist, was played brilliantly by Joanne Woodward. She was very much into like revealing repressed memories, and suggested a lot of things to the woman that Sybil was a pseudonym. There's a lot of indication now that none of that ever happened, but she was very vulnerable to this doctor who wasn't nefarious. She was really trying to help people, but she would say, "Do you remember being touched or something?" And for people who never were, they were like, you know what? I think that did happen. So again, my point is, somewhere between those two polarities, yes, abuse does go on. I mean, just this week, the Vatican did a settlement with close to $1 billion. So it's with families whose children had been abused by priests. So it's clearly a real thing. It's not real for everybody. And sometimes, the power of suggestion is powerful. I've told you this many times, but and I'm not against astrology at all. I think there's a whole lot to it. However, there was years ago, there was a test done at Harvard or Yale, one of the Ivy League schools, where they were dealing with skepticism. And in this class, they said, please write down what your astrological sign is. And then we're going to give you a printout of what is characteristic of people under that sign. So people wrote it out, handed it in. They sent the thing out. And so the professor said, how many of you feel like your description was accurate? And 100% of them said, oh, they nailed it. That's exactly the way a Pisces is. It's totally airy. And it turns out everybody had been given the identical thing. Because there are certain things that's true for everybody. Back in the word of knowledge prophecy days, and I do not despise prophesying, but there's some things that are true for everybody. I could probably call out anybody in here if I was in that mode and say, do you feel really stressed sometimes? I feel like you've dealt with a lot of stress. Duh, you think we all live, that's just called adult life. But if you're really needing a word, and I'm not even saying it's not valid, I'm just saying, of course, that's applicable for everybody. Sometimes, have you had some financial challenges? Yeah. It's called paying bills as an adult. There's some words of knowledge that would be applicable to everybody. Wait, everybody bow your heads. There's somebody here that you've thought about giving up. What did you say, adulting? Right. You're like, yeah, that's like every Monday on the way to work. That's what everybody deals with. Again, sometimes that's a word that you need. I also remember being in a meeting where I led worship for it, and I did not like this guy that was up ministering, and he was doing a lot of personal words, and I thought, please pass me by. Just like, let me guess, am I going to the next level? Yes, I know, I've heard it. But he got to me, and I could feel him coming. I'm standing on the front row, and he's coming. I'm like, oh, not me. I don't really like you. And so he says, you have a stomach problem, don't you? And I'm like, mm-mm. I don't. That's the one thing that, especially back then, everything worked just fine. And I was like, no. And he's like, he came up with 2 or 3 other things that he was like, eh. I wanted to go, you need to move on to somebody else. You're not going to find anything here. Like, I do have a couple things, but you're way off. Like, I remember those guessing games, like, you're getting hot, you're freezing cold. And he was like, nope, cold, move on to somebody else. It must be for somebody else. However, there have been times, like even just before we started today, when I was saying sometimes you need to remember that you have what you say. Well, could I say that's a word for everybody? Yeah, it is. I'm sure it is, because I have to be reminded of it, and I've been teaching on the power of words for 50 years. So if I said, you need to think about what you say, that probably would be applicable to everybody on some level. Again, doesn't mean it's not valid. It means that you have to find that, gosh, everything's about balance. I know I use that word a lot, but it's constantly riding a bike, finding your equilibrium, constantly. Because I know what it's also like to be having a really bad day and somebody message you and say, I don't know why, you just had you really on my mind today and wanted to reach out to you. And you're like, thank you. You just threw me a lifeline. You didn't even need to say anything specific. Just the fact that you were feeling that and picking up on the energy. To me, it says I'm not invisible. God sees me. Maybe I'm reading too much into your text, but what it says to me is everything's going to be okay because something in the spirit world nudged you to reach out to me. And guess what? I needed to be reached out to today. So That doesn't mean that we just say, don't come in here with any prophetic words, because sometimes we need them. Why else do you think the scripture says a word in season so much? Because when you need it, that's your season. If you say, do you like watermelons? I like them in season. Do you like oranges? I like them in season. I don't like them 365 days a year. It has to be the season for it. So when you're ripe for a word can totally change the trajectory of your life. I mean, if it's fitly spoken, like apples of gold in settings of silver, it can change everything. It may just be a simple word with somebody just saying, hey, you know what? Don't give up. Listen, I've had it happen to me on multiple occasions from somebody who I don't even know, who just said something off the cuff to me, and I'm like, you know what? I know you don't even realize it, but that was God speaking through you. The fact that you just said that to me at the time that you said it. One day I remember standing out, I was waiting for a MARTA train, and just this looked like homeless guy walked up to me, young guy, and I was prepared to say, I don't have any money on me, and he didn't ask me for anything. He just walked up and he said, it's the greatest time to be alive, and walked off. And I thought, you know what? Thank you, Holy Spirit. You're right. And it did adjust my thinking about some things that I was dealing with, and it got me back on track. Like, oh, that was a word in season. Yes, I'm dealing with some issues, but it's the greatest time of my life to be alive. Y'all with me? All right. Let me show you this. This is Marcel Pagnol says this quote. The reason people find it so hard to be happy is they always see the past better than it was, the present worse than it is, and the future less resolved than it will be. Truth, truth, truth. Totally truth. It ought to be in the Bible. I'm going to try to work it in somewhere. I'm going to add it. I'm going to add an asterisk and this too. Because, I love nostalgia and the good. But have you ever thought about some TV show that you loved when you were a kid, and you end up watching it on YouTube, and you're like, this isn't as good as I remembered. It's because it was funny to you then. It doesn't really relate to who you are now. Sometimes you need to, and I say this, the last week I've been going through old seasons of Dark Shadows on Prime Video, because I was wanting to remember the storyline. Like, how did Barnabas become a vampire? I don't even remember. But I remember now, it's like, oh yeah, in that season, Victoria Winters, they had a seance. She goes back to 1789, and Angelique's in love with him, but he's in love with Josette. And so he spurns Angelique, and she puts a curse on him, and a bat comes out and bites him. Okay, now I remember. So I still watch that. I made Ken watch a few of them last night. I said, I'm sorry I'm watching these, but I have to figure out, how does Victoria Winters get back to 1967, because I don't remember how she did that. So I'm going through. I got to remember. But some things you go back and you think, I need to just that's maybe not as great as I remember. I remember when DVDs first came out. I got like the whole, maybe all of seasons of Laugh-In, Rhoda Martin's Laugh-In, and I was watching it with my kids, and they were like, Dad, this isn't funny. I said, I know, you had to have been there. It was like, it was funny in 1968 when we hadn't seen anything like this, but now I shouldn't have even. And let's just put this up, because I need to remember. Because in my mind, it was really funny. Not so much now. But that is kind of an avatar for, what you think are the good old days. That, wherever you are living right now really are the good old days. And you can have good memories from the past. But do you want to go back to them? Not necessarily. I loved, and love being a father. And I was hands-on with all four of my children. I changed diapers. I did, as much as I could do. Would I want to go back to that? I don't miss it. I'm just glad I had that experience when they were weaned. I was real happy about that. Like Jared and Christina were close enough in age. I can remember going to the store and having to buy 2 different sizes of Pampers, and that was a lot. But it was short-lived. They're adults now, and I guess they figured that out. That part of their life, they're on their own, and I'm glad they are. But that's those of you that took pictures of it, that's worth remembering. Let me show you this next one. This is Marcel Proust, another Marcel, who says he wrote a lot about memory. He says, we were able to find everything in our memory, which is like a dispensary or chemical laboratory in which chance steers our hands sometimes to a soothing drug and sometimes to a dangerous poison. And that's exactly the way memory works. Like sometimes when I get on a jag and I'm talking about, because most of y'all are somewhere in my age neighborhood. I know y'all are younger. I know that. Some of you be like, "Don't you put me up?" You know what I mean. The bulk of the median age is we watched a lot of the same shows and listened to a lot of the same music. And I can talk about certain things about, if I ever start talking about Saturday morning cartoons or kids serials, immediately everybody there's a sense of bonding around that because we all had that experience. So we go back in memory and we find a chemical neuropath that is really kind of healing. I could also bring the room down because some of y'all had alcoholic parents. Some of y'all were raised by rageaholics. So, you know what I mean? I'm not thinking anybody specific. I'm just saying, if I start talking about the downside of childhood, even last night, the Bad News Bears was on, and we watched a little bit of it, made in 1976 with Walter Matthau. It was really oppressive. Like these kids were, I know they were trying to go for realism, but it was so much about bullying and the way kids talk to each other. I said, this is giving me anxiety. Like some of the stuff these little kids are saying to each other. I remember kids saying things like that, and this is not cathartic to me. This is like, good Lord, the Bad News Bears need Jesus. Everybody put your hand to the television screen. It was just, there's one kid in particular I remember, he was, and I totally remembered a boy. I went to elementary school, and boy, he completely reminds me of that kid. And it was not entertaining. So I'm not telling you not to go into the laboratory of your memories. Just be careful what you pick out. Some things need to be remembered. Some things need to let go. All of it is an and. Because sometimes, people say, you haven't forgiven if you hadn't forgotten. I don't believe that. I don't think it's realistic. And furthermore, if someone's hurt you many times, you probably should remember. Otherwise, you're just going to set yourself up for abuse over and over and over again. So sometimes remembering, it's okay. What was the famous Tupac Shakur quote where he says, if we're not friends, you're not my enemy. I don't want you not to eat. I just don't want you to eat at my table. And I thought that's exactly it. I don't wish you ill will, but the kitchen here is closed because last time you came to the table, you flipped the table over and, ruined dinner. So, and I remember that. All right, now let me get to this. This is, his name is Jim Swilley. This is from a meditation that I wrote earlier this week that not nearly enough of you commented on, so I'm going to have to make you read it again. It says, don't believe everything you think, don't believe everything you remember. It's been proven that the majority of your negative thoughts are nothing more than stories shaped by past conditioning manifested through the state of your current nervous system. well-rehearsed historical accounts, many of them fictionalized, embellished, or misremembered, retold again and again through your internal monologue until they become well-worn neuropaths winding through the dark forest of your memory. That's a good line. I don't care. I don't care who you are. They may feel familiar and are possibly your go-to default settings when you feel some kind of way, but they are most definitely not objective, irrefutable facts. You may know these thoughts well and have even possibly become addicted to them because they make you feel like yourself when you're out of sorts. But just because you've been in a long-term relationship with them, I'm talking about your thoughts, it doesn't mean that they are your friends. Can I get a witness? Just because you know somebody well doesn't mean they're good for you. Yes, thoughts are things, and thoughts are creative or destructive, but you are not your thoughts. When a negative or critical thought pops into your head, I should say first investigate to determine if it's even your thought. That's huge. Because sometimes it's something somebody else said to you. It's not even organic or authentic to you. But you haven't challenged it, so they've basically hijacked your thinking. And now they're thinking through you. It's very much like the whole idea of incantations and casting a spell on somebody. It's putting those intentions on somebody. If you realize that it's someone else's perception which has been projected onto you, don't be afraid to do some immediate radical house cleaning and think for yourself. From that point, become aware that thoughts manifest physical feelings and sensations in your body. Tension in your neck, head and shoulders, or that awful sinking feeling in your chest and stomach, and try to detach the thought from those sensations. This is one thing I really did learn from Joe Dispenza. He said you can become addicted to negative feelings because they make you feel like yourself. You're so used to them that you don't feel like yourself if you're not thinking that. And he said it's like breaking a chemical addiction. And man, when he said that, I thought, I know that's true. Because some things you just think, well, I've thought this so long, it's familiar, and it makes me feel like me. When you disconnect the feeling from the thought begins to lose its power over you. Practice relaxation or meditation techniques to tackle negative physical feelings. With practice, you may find, by the way, I just noticed that the background you used was very similar to what I used when I wrote this. That was very, I see you. You go, Michelle. With practice, you may find that this has a significant impact on how long the anxiety lasts and how big it gets. If something really traumatic happened to you that you know for sure actually occurred and is now affecting your current thought life, don't be afraid to face it head on and deal with it. Walk right down to the lion's den and take care of it. But if it's just negative conditioning from wrong thoughts, that's an easy fix. You just have to be conscious and do it, and not be afraid not be afraid to meet the new you that will inevitably emerge when you begin to think different, better thoughts. When you get a chance, go back and read that. When I post, I need to. That's not that's on me. I didn't. You know, when you prove something, you read it over and over again. You think, how did I not see that? And I see it now. Anyway, it's basically stating everything that I've just said to you today. Okay. Now, is that number 6? Okay, this is good. This is, I forgot the guy's name. It was in the Huffington Post. Look at this. It says, 500 years ago, Michel de Montaigne said, "My life has been filled with terrible misfortune, most of which never happened." Now there's a study that proves it. This study looked into how many of our imagined calamities never materialize. In this study, subjects were asked to write down their worries over an extended period of time and then identify which of their imagined misfortunes did not actually happen. Lo and behold, it turns out that 85% of what subjects worried about never happened. And with the 15% that did happen, 79% of subjects discovered either they could handle the difficulty better than expected, or the difficulty taught them a lesson worth learning. This means that 97% of what you worry over is not much more than a fearful mind punishing you with exaggerations and misperceptions. Now, I'm not trying to say, oh, this is all in your mind. I'm not trying to gaslight you. I'm saying if there's stuff that really happened, you have to deal with it. Also know that a whole bunch of stuff has worked out. And when you're facing a giant, you have to say, well, I killed a bear and I killed a lion. I guess I can kill this Philistine. You have to remind yourself that you've been through stuff. I was thinking this week, and the people involved in this story, I pray they will not be upset that I named names. But Wednesday night, I met with the boys, like I do on Wednesday nights, and I was telling them my little situation that I just had in my body. And they were giving me good counsel about it, and it was, when I say Wednesday night Bible study, I'm being tongue-in-cheek, but it is a sort of a time where we talk about what's going on with you and what are you grateful for and what have you learned. And it's, they say that the greatest thing in the world is when your children grow up and become your friends. And I would say, I completely agree. And this is true for my daughter as well. But I don't see her as much. But my 3 sons really are my best friends. And I can really talk to them about just about anything. And Jared, because he's in recovery, has a tendency to be kind of lectury. But I'm glad he is, because sometimes sometimes he'll say something that I think, you know what, you're right. Don't say it again, but you're right. And I'd rather him be that way than the way he was for years. So I'll take it. And I'm also very aware that when I talk to them, that your children are all very different. I can say anything to Judah, and he just listens to me. If I say anything to Jared, he tells me how to fix it. And sometimes I'm like, I'm not talking. I'm just telling y'all what's going on in my life. But it's good. I need, it takes a village. So after all of that happened, without any warning, Jonah pops down these pictures of sonogram of an unborn child, and they're pregnant. And they were a few months ago, and she lost it. But now they're well past that time. She's been to the doctor twice. Everything is fine. I hope they don't mind me saying this. But it turned Judah's so funny. He had to get up from the table. He said, this is too much. I can't deal with it. Dad's dying and Jonah's having a baby. Like, it's too much. It's too much emotion. I said, don't get me started. I'll pass out. But it was great timing. And was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. Because I said, have you told your mom yet? He said, we're going to tell her tomorrow night. Okay, so I waited till I'm sure they had told her. And so yesterday, without saying anything, I just sent her those, because I took pictures of the sonogram. And I mean, you could totally see a little profile, and it's you could see it's a baby. And so I just sent them to Debbie without saying anything. Well, of course, she called me, and we ended up talking for a long time. And it was a great conversation, really, really good. And I even said to her, I said, I'm really happy for this for you, because, I mean, Christina loves her, but I mean, it does change the dynamic when that's your ex-stepmother. I mean, I hardly see my granddaughters. I mean, Debbie, like, virtually not at all. I mean, they didn't have any falling out or anything. It's just the nature of, that's the way life works out. And, she loved being a grandmother to my grandkids. And I said, Not that this isn't going to be my grandchild, but I'm happy for you. I'm happy that you're going to have this experience. And I could say that and really mean it, because not everybody has that relationship. Um, half the time, Ken's granddaughters live with Lisa, his ex-wife, so he goes over there and sees them probably about once a week when he's out there, and it's fine. It's like I'm not worried that, like maybe he's gonna, no, we're way through the looking glass on that, and I'm very much about that. Like I'm the one. We went to Addie's first birthday party. I don't know if you remember this, but I said, "Let me get a picture of you and Lisa." And both of them were like, I said, "No, you're going to want this one day," and because that's the truth. And it was just a very mature conversation that I had with Debbie, and I said, even thank you, because I did not know what I was going to do for Thanksgiving this year, and I didn't want to go. The house just is not in a place where I could fire it up and get ready. And frankly, I just don't want to. I mean, the last several years now, for Thanksgiving and Christmas, I order the food, I pay for the food, I pick up the food, I go set it out. If Ken's with me, he helps heat it up. And if Sophie's there, she helps with cleanup. But it's basically my one-man show. Like, everybody says, "Thanks, Dad, it was great." I'm like, good, I'm glad. Because, I didn't cook, but I did all the stuff. And I just didn't want to do. And so last Wednesday night, Jonah said, "Hey, Mom, just wanted to know, would y'all just like to come over here for Thanksgiving?" I was like, oh, hell yes. That you cannot believe how much I want. I told Mom last Sunday, I'm still getting to my point of the story. I told Mom last Sunday night, I said, we're going to Debbie's house for Thanksgiving. She said, "Well, we can involve." I said, "No, we're not just involving her. I'm going to send her money, and Jared's going to do the turkey." I volunteered him for that. He did the turkey last year, and it was great. He wants to do it. It's good. We are, the modern family. But I was like, oh, I'm all about it, because I didn't know how else I was going to do Thanksgiving this year. And but here's the reason I'm saying all of that. I was just thinking about this really mature conversation that I had with her, and talking to her about, I said, sometimes especially a few months ago when Ken had his situation, between taking care of him and my mom, it was a lot. And I would always think about the fact that, her last boyfriend, Shannon, good guy, he died of cancer. And she was living in the house with him, taking care of Bo. And I said, anytime I would get overwhelmed, I would think, you win on that one. Like, I don't know how you did that. And I actually would think about it and think, well, dear God, I guess if she did it, mine's nothing like that. So here's the point of saying all that and how it relates to this. I think I shared this once before, 11/11. But, I just celebrated my 14th anniversary of coming out publicly. That was a couple weeks ago. And earlier that year, this would have been like April of that year maybe, Debbie and I were already separated. We might have already been divorced at that point. I don't remember. But definitely separated, and trying to figure out how to make all of that work. Y'all all know my story. I mean, she and I still worked together for 4 years after that until I started Metron. And, we fulfilled Kelly Varner's prophecy. We did something nobody had ever done before. I'm sure of it. I'm sure there was never an out gay man pastoring a church in Newton County that was multicultural with his ex-wife and her boyfriend sitting on the front row and my husband. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that hasn't been done. And we did it. I could have stayed there. We could have bought that building, but I don't know if y'all know this. It's time you should know. I really love Atlanta. Did I ever tell y'all that? And I am truly a city boy. Nothing against those of y'all that live out there. I get it. I love you. I'm glad you drive down here. this is where I'm happy. This is my neighborhood. With all the homeless people and the traffic and all of it, they're my homeless people. It's my traffic. It's where I live. So I remember whatever month this was, early 2010, I was sitting in the Starbucks next to where we used to have Metron for 9 years. And I had my computer open. And back then, it's not like this now, but they had private tables, but there was also a big table that probably sat 8 people maybe. So the table was full, and I was working on it, and these 2 guys were on either side of me, and to this day, I can't remember how we started talking. And in the conversation, I realized these are both gay men. I assumed they were a couple. They weren't. They were friends. They were there together. Somehow we started talking, and I don't remember how we got into it, but somehow I told them who I was, and I said, I don't know what's going to happen. I said, I haven't come out to my kids. I have no idea how they're going to respond. I haven't come out to my church. I don't know if I'm going to survive that. And I'm really trying to figure, the scripture uses the phrase, many are in the valley of decision. I definitely was in that valley. And so they were like real interested, and they wanted to see pictures. So I'm like, this is my wife or ex-wife. These are my kids. And we sat there and talked for so long. They're giving me feedback, and they're saying, well, Christina would be fun. They're like, it's like I know these guys. I'm going to say we probably sat there for 3 hours and talked. And they were so intrigued with the story, they came to Church of the Now the next day. They said, we've got to see your... I saw them come in and sit up in the balcony area. And at that time, I was full of a lot of anxiety. I said, I don't know how this is going to play out. I don't know what my parents are going to be like. My whole world may be about to end, but I'm through the looking glass now. She and I, we're not going to, Debbie's classic words to me were, this is your fault because you're my pastor and you said God loves everybody just like they are, and you don't give yourself the same courtesy. And I said, don't do it. I said, don't leave me. I said, you know how many high-profile ministry couples we know that haven't been married for years, live in separate houses, but they keep the image for the public. She said, we have too much integrity for that. You're the one that said real people experience the real God in the real world. I'm not going to live a lie because, is this too much information? Because back then I was like, go get a boyfriend. I don't need to know. Let's just keep the public appearance up. I said, we're going to lose everything we've got. I'm supporting missionaries all over the world. Don't do it. And, I've said it 10 million times. I said, I think you underestimate the power of homophobia. She said, I think you underestimate the power of the people in your life. And we were both wrong. We were both right. I did lose a lot. I did not lose everything. I most certainly did not lose the anointing at all. So I'm sitting there with these guys. I'm not even in touch with them now. One of them I kept in touch with for a while, but I don't even know where they are now. As I'm telling the story, I can't even remember their names. That's how, we're talking 14 years ago. But when I started to pack things up, one of them looked at me and he said, I don't know why I want to say this to you, but there's a Christmas coming where you will be at your house with your family and you'll have somebody with you. And he's calling her name. He said, Debbie will have somebody with her, and your kids will be there, and your parents will be there, and it'll be the happiest Christmas you've ever had. And I was watching his mouth move when he said it, and I thought, there's no way that, it's like you just said, I might as well say, what time does the spaceship leave for Jupiter? Because what you've just said to me, there's no way it's going to be that smooth. There's no way that can happen. I don't think you understand the world I came from. It's about to hit the fan big time. My life as I know it is about to fall apart. But he said it And you talk about a specific word. I'm like, that's real specific. So in October of that year, I did come out. And that Christmas, I still lived in Covington. Debbie had moved into the loft where I live now, where I've lived since 2011. And I was with it before I met Ken. I was with a different person, but I did have somebody there at Christmas, and so did Debbie. She had relationships since then, but it was exactly as he said. So I remember getting up from the table, and I had his number, and I called him. I said, I just got to tell you. I said, I don't know if you've ever heard the word prophetic, but the thing that you described to me is exact. It's like you saw it. I said, I am here, and I am with somebody, and she is here, and she's with somebody. Matter of fact, he helped with the cooking. And my parents are here, and her parents are here. And it's exactly like you said. And when I say it's the happiest Christmas, I don't know that it was for my kids. I mean, I'm sure it put them through things I probably can't get my head around. But for me, hands down happiest Christmas. Just because I thought I'm completely telling the truth about my life, and the truth it didn't do me in. I mean, I still have a life. Most importantly, I still have a family. I still have my children. Because that was, I love the ministry, but if my boys freak out on me, I don't think I can survive it. I mean, my kids' opinion of me is the most important thing in the world. And the reason I'm saying that in line with this, as I'm having this conversation with her this week, and I thought, this prophecy's still being played out. Like, my life still is wonderful. The fact that I can even have this conversation, because I know men who were married and had children who came out late in life, their kids don't even speak to them. And the fact that I have this much goodwill, and I told Ken, I said, this is what we're going to do Thanksgiving night. I don't know if you've made plans yet. He found out his family's meeting the next day on Friday. I thought, okay, great. Planets are lining up. This is all going to work. This is going to be so stress-free. It's going to be awesome. And to me, it was just a reminder, all the stuff I was worried about, it didn't happen. I mean, I've been meeting every Wednesday night with my boys for over 2 years now. And the last 2 weeks, they've all been in town, which is unheard of. I may have shared this with you, but a few days ago when I met my teacher that I love so much, at the end of our conversation, she was telling me that she and her husband, Leland, were about to go to the UK for something. And she says, in your travels, do you remember, she says, I've been there before, but it was years ago. Bottom line is, I'm trying to download an app to pay for the underground, which is their subway, and I'm having trouble with it. I said, it's been years since I was there, but my youngest son just did a tour in the UK. He just got back from there like 3 days ago. Give me a second. So I called Jonah, and he picks right up. I said, Jonah, I'm here with my friend Louisa, and they're about to go to the UK. I said, when you were just there the other day, did you ride the subway or the underground? He said, yeah. I said, could you tell her how you paid for it? Because she was wanting to know, can you use a credit card there or whatever? And I handed her the phone. I'm sorry. And he's given her the information. And I thought, I can't believe I'm having this full circle moment that my youngest son is talking to Miss Moffett. I still have to call her Miss Moffett. She's like, call me Louisa. I'm like, I can't. That's blasphemous. You're my 10th grade English teacher forever. But they talked for a few minutes. When they got through, I said, did he tell you what you needed? She said, exactly. And I said, this is such a good moment. My life has ended up so good. What's the scripture that says, mark the perfect man and see how the end of his days are? And Proverbs says, when a man's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him. And I've so lived that out. I can't tell you how many people in these last 14 years have written me and said, I need to apologize. I so overreacted to that. And, you know, you're still my pastor and always will be. And some of them don't come here. And I honestly, I don't even care about that anymore. I carried that drama for years. Like, oh, really, if you love me, drive to Atlanta now. I'm just like, you know what? I'm tired of caring about that. Y'all were sophisticated enough to know that the streets don't end at Rockdale County. Like you figured out you could actually drive to Atlanta, and you survived it. Some of your neighbors are not that sophisticated. So God bless them. And I'm saying this to you to say there may be things in your life that you think, how's it going to work out? How's it going to work out? There's some things about dealing with my mom that I don't know how that's going to work out. But one night this week, she texted me. She said, I need my coat. And I thought, man, she doesn't need a coat. But then it did get cold. I thought, well, I don't know if she's going to be leaving there, but if she does, she probably does need so. So I drove over, got a coat out of her house, and dropped it off. And when I drove up, I thought, gosh, she's been in here 7 months. And somehow we've paid for it. I can't, take no thought for tomorrow. I can't tell you what's going to happen, years from now. But I'm not years from now down the road yet. And I think, well, that ended up okay. Do you understand why I'm telling you this? Aren't there things in your life that you thought, how's this going to work out? But it did. And it still will. And that's the whole reason I'm saying that. Yes, keep your memories, but just because a bad thing happened in the past doesn't mean it's going to happen in the future. I'm sorry that I passed out the other day, but one day this week, I thought, you know what, I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to walk, and I'm not going to worry about it. And I walked so far that I thought, you know what, I'm going to walk all the way down to the Fulton County government. Says I'm going to go ahead and vote. Because my precinct, they're remodeling that building, so they're probably not going to be voting there anyway. And I walked a long way. And I voted, and it was great. And on the way back, I thought, you know what? I've never eaten lunch at the Candler Hotel. By God, I'm eating lunch at the Candler Hotel. And I walked in. I said, y'all can make me take my hat off because I got hat head. And they said, no. Because a lot of high-end places, you have to take your hat off. They said, no, you do not. And I said, this is the best day ever, and I'm not going to pass out. And I didn't. That was Friday. That's why I didn't take this off, because I thought, I walked a long way for this. And the ladies that were there were so nice. And I said, y'all are sheroes for working these poles in this environment. And they said, we ain't scared. I was like, God bless America. I thought, if they ain't scared, I ain't scared. So my whole thing about the truth that makes you free is figure out which memories to keep, which are legit. If they are legit and negative, process them. But also don't keep creating the same future out of your memory, because that's the way it's always been. You keep thinking this is the way it should be again. Just because it happened that way doesn't mean it's going to happen that way again, which brings me to point number 7. It's simply this. But what if? What if it does work out? What if you learn something new? But what if it unfolds better than you can imagine? Is anybody feeling me right now? Is there anything you were scared the hell out of you? And then it worked out. You're like, dear God, this is more than I can ask or think. This worked out so much better. This is better than what I even visualized. But what if you have a massive breakthrough. But what if you inspire yourself and another person? A few days ago when it was my 14th anniversary and I posted something about it, immediately, it happens every year, October 13th, an influx of people writing me saying, you saved my life, you saved my life. I've heard the phrase, you saved my life so much, I think somebody should give me a medal. Nobody's ever says you preach good. I hear, you saved my life. But what if it ignites a new passion within you? But what if you transcend the fear holding you back? But what if it leads you to another opportunity? But what if you grow into a greater being? Can I suggest? Go ahead. Can I submit this to you? You must be born again. You hear me? And I'm not talking about going down to the altar at a Billy Graham crusade and saying a sinner's prayer. I'm saying when you die, you have to live again. When a thing ends, the same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead has to dwell in you and quicken your mortal body. You've got to get up out of that grave over and over and over again. And when it looks like a thing that you love is dying, you have to get excited about it. For the joy that was set before him, Jesus endured the cross, despising the shame. That's why I say you must be born again and again and again and again and again. And every time you rise to new life. Bow your heads. I want to just do a quick meditation. I thought I went longer than I thought, but I did say we were going to meditate. Did you get anything out of this today? We'll just do about a 5-minute one. And I went longer than I thought, but it all needed to be said. Selah, S-E-L-A-H. David wrote it in the Psalms, and it was in between stanzas of music, and it means pause and calmly think of that. You know how to breathe. You know inhale, exhale, into the nose, out through the mouth. You know all that. I just want you to sit with this word right now. Those of you who are streaming, watching YouTube, you do it now too. I just want you to get quiet and let yourself feel grateful and present and well and blessed and optimistic and full of faith. This meditation, we set the spiritual thermostat for next weekend, for meditation weekend number 23. For those of you that have been on the fence about going, I hope you'll just make the decision to go. But before we breathe out of this, repeat after me. It is well. I am well. It shall be well. I am. Again, it is well. It shall be well. I am well. I am. One more time. It is well. It shall be well. I am well. I am. I bless your memories. I bless your imagination. That you know when to meld them and when to separate them. And that you use your creative power to create your best future. Amen. Let's all stand. Ah, beautiful. Let's play the outro, if you will.
You can give anytime using any smartphone.
There's the
Text the
QR
amount you'd like to
codes
donate
if you want
to
to go to PayPal
404-620-5044. You will then receive a notification that you successfully completed your donation. You may also visit bishopthenow.com and click the support tab to give there as well. When you contribute to Metron, you're also donating to the charity or organization of the month. Thank you for your investment into Metron.
If you have a check, make it to JESM. If you have cash, just pay it forward. So you got something out of it. It was worth coming today, wasn't it? I told y'all. Hopefully I'll see many of you. If not Friday night, I'll see you Saturday. If not Saturday, I'll see you Sunday. If not Sunday, I'll see you here next week in November of 2024. God bless you. Go in peace.